Good day everyone, this is Nikki Mabale, your facilitator for today, and today we are going to talk about a teaching strategy of what we call flipped classroom. At the end of the session, the students will be able to define the teaching strategy flipped classroom, differentiate traditional classroom from flipped classroom, weigh its advantages and disadvantages to ensure a beneficial learning using the flipped classroom strategy, foster better relationships, greater engagement, and higher levels of motivation using the flipped classroom, and lastly, practice the procedure of flipped classroom engagement from teachers to students. So what is flipped classroom strategy? A flipped classroom is a type of blended learning where students are introduced to content at home and practice working through it at school. This is the reverse of the more common practice of introducing new content at school than assigning homework and projects to be completed by the students independently at home. In flipped classes, students consume pre-recorded lectures on their own, while class time is reserved for more active learning like discussions, projects, and workshops. So why do we call it the flipped classroom? Because the regular or traditional classroom has been turned upside down. Well, not literally, but it has completely changed its way of teaching and learning. So let me show you the difference of the traditional classroom from the flipped classroom. In the traditional classroom, there are no lessons prior to class. Before class, we have their blanked. During class, students watch lecture given by the professor. This is the moment that students are able to engage to the lesson during class. And after class, students consolidate understanding. So consolidation or processing of understanding about the lesson can only occur after class since the lesson was only introduced during class. While in the flipped classroom, we've got their pre, during, and post. So as what you can see before class, students do reading or watching lecture prior to class. So this is the lessons that the teacher provides ahead of time for students to learn on their own personal space. So that during class, range of activities, discussions, or quizzes led by professor but centered on students are done to consolidate understanding. So during class, the lessons that the students were able to engage before class are then processed during class. And after class, students further consolidate understanding and prepare for the next class. In K-12 and higher education circles, the flipped classroom instructional strategy, also known as the inverted classroom, has been receiving a lot of attention. The idea is that rather than taking up limited class time for an instructor to introduce a concept, often via lecture, the instructor can create a video lecture, screencast, or vodcast that teaches students the concept, freeing up valuable class time for more engaging and often collaborative activities typically facilitated by the instructor. It is important to note that the strategy should involve more than just the take-home video lecture. It should also incorporate formative and summative assessment, as well as meaningful face-to-face learning activities. Although many instructors at all educational levels and from various settings have been incorporating this strategy for years, the term is most often attributed to two Colorado high school teachers, Jonathan Bergmann and Aaron Sams, who began creating screencasts and podcasts for their students in 2006. For more information about the origin or history of the flipped classroom, you can check the description link below the video. The flipped classroom strategy advocates tout benefits. Most seem to be plausible advantages. So here we've got the advantages of the flipped classroom strategy. It increases time for more engaging instruction. Students take ownership for learning. It promotes student-centered learning and collaboration. Lessons and content are more accessible. Its emphasis is on cooperative learning. It gives more time to explore the content and it can be more efficient, especially for those teaching in hybrid or blended settings consisting of some combination of face-to-face and online instruction. However, the strategy also has its limitations. So let's go over the limitations of flipped classroom. First, the quality of the video lecture may be very poor. Even though an instructor might be outstanding in face-to-face settings, he or she may not produce a quality video instructionally and or technically. So this is very common in most cases. Second, taking for granted that all students can view the video lecture on their own computers. The conditions under which they might view the video may not be the best for learning any concepts. For example, a student might view a video while also watching a baseball game and listening to music. Arguably, there are many distractions in face-to-face classrooms, but at least the teacher can monitor comprehension with several formative assessments. Third, students may not watch or comprehend the video and therefore be unprepared or insufficiently prepared for the more engaging activities that will occur face-to-face. Fourth, students may need a lot of scaffolding to ensure they understand the material presented in the video. Although good instructors will likely build in effective scaffolding activities while students watch the video, such as stop, think, and answer questions, and also rewind if needed, they may still fall short in providing enough scaffolding activities for all types of learners. Fifth, students are not able to ask questions of the instructor or their peers if they watch the video alone. Therefore, important just-in-time questions to help them comprehend the material cannot occur unless the instructor is available during the viewing, which is difficult. Finally, the flipped classroom strategy may not be the best approach for second language learners or those with learning challenges, which represents learners not only at the K-12 level, but all educational levels and settings. How can the flipped classroom strategy best be used? Although there are many limitations to the flipped classroom strategy and no empirical research exists to substantiate its use, anecdotal reports by many instructors maintain that it can be used as a valuable teaching strategy at any educational level, depending on one's learners, resources, and time. Moreover, it seems to be a good fit for teaching knowledge that is procedural. One of the four general types of knowledge described in the revised Bloom's taxonomy is a procedural knowledge. It is knowledge about how to do something. Therefore, a flipped classroom video lecture about how to solve a quadratic equation in which an instructor describes and models how to solve this type of problem would be a good use of the strategy. Complex procedural knowledge can also be taught utilizing the flipped classroom strategy. Although scaffolding and chunking of content will be very important, not only to ensure that videos are short, but also to make certain that all of the steps of the procedure are introduced adequately so students understand it thoroughly. Although procedural knowledge is arguably the best type of knowledge to teach using the flipped classroom strategy, the other three types of knowledge, which are factual, conceptual, and metacognitive knowledge, can also be taught using this strategy. So as for factual, it is a knowledge describing the basic and essential elements a person must know, while for conceptual, knowledge of the relationship between classifications and categories. For metacognitive knowledge, this is the knowledge about one's own cognition. However, it is important to note that much more time and thought will need to go into employing the flipped classroom strategy. 4 pillars of flipped classroom. First, we need the flexible environment. Educators can create flexible spaces in which students choose when and where they learn. Furthermore, educators who flip their classes are flexible in their expectations of student timelines for learning and in their assessments for student learning. Second, learning culture. The flipped learning model deliberately shifts instruction to a learner-centered approach where class time is dedicated to exploring topics in greater depth and creating rich learning opportunities. Students are actively involved in knowledge construction as they practice in and evaluate their learning in a manner that is personally meaningful. Third, intentional content. Intentional content is where educators continually think about how they can use the flipped learning model to help students develop conceptual understanding and procedural fluency. Educators use intentional content to maximize class time in order to adopt methods of student-centered, active learning strategies. And for the last one, we need the professional educator. Professional educators continually observe their students, providing them with feedback relevant in the moment and assessing their work. Professional educators are reflective in their practice, connect with each other to improve their instruction, accept constructive criticism, and tolerate controlled chaos in their classroom. So that's it for today. Before I end this lesson, I want to give you a quote from William Arthur Ward. The mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, but the great teacher inspires.